guys in general have kind of a hard time talking about things and opening up, and I would put myself in that same boat. But it kind of opened, like when it got like real bad in 2020, kind of opened my eyes of like, I need to kind of go get some shit off my chest and go and kind of seek some professional help, because I can't handle it all on my own. I'm not Superman.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Think Outside the Pylons. I am with special guest Anthony Hume today, the defensive tackle for the Alberta Golden Bears. And honestly, thank you so much for being on the show today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, brother. It's been kind of something that we're trying to work towards all season, so I'm just glad to be here.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, obviously season just ended, might not have ended the way you wanted it to. We'll get to that in just a second, but I just want to ask, like, how is everything going with you? What's life like for you now?
Life's good. Things kind of, once football kind of stops, things really start to slow down, and you kind of find yourself like, oh my God, I have an extra like 4 or 5 hours every single night now that I can just kind of do whatever with. So getting used to that is always like getting back into that, like not just falling into just like sloth mode and be like, oh, there's still things that like you can do. That's kind of been a readjustment, kind of getting out of football and into like life kind of stuff, just teaching and kind of doing whatever I want at this point now, because there's nothing really holding me back. So
That's awesome. It's weird to get out of that zone of like every day you have structure. And I know I talked about someone with this before. It's like structure, and then it shuts down. And it's like, where do I go from here?
yeah, and I typically, like in like years past, found myself just going like the first few weeks or like month like after season has just been like off the walls of just like, like I do whatever I like. But now it's kind of like, oh no, let's try and like be a little bit more responsible. You know what I mean? Like I'm not 19 years old anymore. I can't just put whatever I want into this body and do whatever I want, right? So
Can't go partying like we used to, right? We got to kind of monitor, right? We got to make sure there's a little bit less captain in the cup after everything, right?
exactly.
So football season just ended for you. It unfortunately did not end the way you wanted it to. I actually want to ask you, what are the emotions of like that for your last game? I guess you are a senior. I'm assuming this is going to be your last game of your career. What was that like for you?
Man, it was like it was great question. It was like anything. Like honestly, like going in, like to the last game, it's like once you get out of playoff, or once you get in the playoffs and you're out of the season and like in your last year, you're like, oh shit, like everything is like a privilege now at this point. Like every game, like every practice, like I'm playing on borrowed time kind of thing. At least that's how I was playing with it. So then in the game, even though definitely didn't go the way we wanted to, got our fucking shit rocked in the first half. But like, defense, as I played defense, they came, like we had a good like latter half. I remember for like me, I was just kind of, I never really lost faith until like, I think it was like I looked at the clock and there was like 2 minutes left. I was like, oh shit, there's like 2 minutes left in my career. Like, yeah. That's like, and that's kind of when it like all kind of started to like hit me. And I was like, nope, like I'm still a football player until like that clock hits zeros, right? And so I kind of just really leaned on that of just like doing my best to kind of just keep the boys up and just like keep the energy flowing until the fat lady sings, right? And then once that happened, it was like,
So yeah, what was that moment like when it was over? When I'm guessing you get to the locker room, you're taking off those pads for the last time, taking off that jersey. What was the emotions that you were feeling?
Heartbreak. It was probably the closest thing I've ever had to like heartbreak. I remember like, so I was like the first one off the field, like into the tunnel, just pissed obviously, right, about that performance. Um, and like I remember it didn't like, it really like hit when I saw the locker room, because we were playing away, and that's when I kind of just stopped and I was like, oh fuck, like once I go into this locker room, I'm never coming out as like a ball player again. And I was like in there, I mean, there's tears and emotions from like everybody. Oh God, we had a pretty veteran team this year, so there was a lot of, not just from the guys who it was their last year, but just from everybody in general. I think was just pretty upset about how we all went out, because we thought we had a lot more kind of in the tank to kind of make a run at it. But I know I was like this, like either the last or second last guy sitting in my path, because again, it was just kind of just like that. Everything that kept coming back was like, it's the last time doing this, it's the last time doing that. It's like, and so like, and it was like that moment, like, and I had a buddy of mine, actually, it was in 2019, it was his last year, and he was like, man, I just can't take off my pads, like I can't take off my jersey. I didn't get it until it was me, and I was like, oh, now I get it, because again, like once these come off, like I'm never strapping up again, like ever. And I was just, it was, because obviously going to every football game being like, I'm gonna win. So like I hadn't really processed the thought of what might happen if I had lose. So it was just like really tough to kind of get through in the moment. But I'm a few weeks out now, so I'm feeling a lot better, feeling a lot more
I'm
confident,
acclimating
collected.
to like what life is after football somewhat because you're still in school and everything. So I know. So now you're sitting there, your entire team's there. Does your coach come in and give you guys like a last speech, or is it just quiet until you guys get on the bus and head to the airport?
Oh no, it was like he comes in, he talks for a little bit. Pardon me. Sorry.
You're fine.
He came in and he talked for a little bit, kind of brought the boys all in, said some final words type stuff. And then like I think we had a long time before we got on the bus because there was a lot of like just a lot of emotion. Just because like I think I think football in general, passion kind of fuels us as like players. So I know for me, like I left it all out there, and when I looked around like my locker room, I had no doubt that everybody did as well. So it was just quite an emotional time, just kind of saying like our last goodbyes, kind of as a team. So it wasn't like ours wasn't rowdy, right? But it was just like solemn.
And I forget who said it, but the reason why people love sports so much, or football for general, and the reason why people coordinate it with army and military so much in the States is that every play is like war. It's a battle, right? Every single play is 12 on 12 or 11 versus 11, and you're trying to win that battle every single play, and you have to keep winning it eventually to win that war of the day. So it's huge, right? It's the passion of each play matters even when you don't think it does. The second quarter, first down, and like whatever it is, it matters because that's going to have implications on the rest of the game and how you fuel yourself through the rest of the game as well.
100%. And like the longer I played, the more that I've noticed these parables between football, I mean, and life in general, but like especially like the military, like as you're saying, and like when I try to explain to people, like I think they look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, nah, dude, like it is like there's ground forces, there's like and there's like air forces, and I'm like. I have a theory that on any given football play, you can have maximum, I mean, for Canadian rules, two people kind of bust. And it's like, so that means you got to have almost everybody else like doing their job for it to be successful. And to me, that's why I always call it the best team sport like on the planet, because I can't think of another sport that you need like that many people doing completely different things but all working towards one kind of common goal. Because every like you look at like a football team, like you can football players come in every shape and size, and that's how it's supposed to be, right? So but everybody's kind of just I do my job that contributes to the overall success of the team, right?
And that's for you. I mean, you're a defensive lineman, right? So people literally say you're in the trenches, right? There is a correlations between military and sport and football right there. And I've said this before. It's like basketball. You can lean on that one person, right? You can have that one superstar, and they can carry the team. Everybody knows the quarterback may be the most important player on the team when it comes to football, but that doesn't mean that if you have a great quarterback or a bad quarterback, you're going to win or lose any game, because it does matter on the entire team. It really depends on the coaches too, coaching adjustments and things like that. You have to have your general in place to have the right game plan, to have the right war path in order to be able to win the game, correct? So that's what's really important.
100%. Like Tom Brady's not Tom Brady, or Tom Brady without like five fantastic athletes who are like keeping him alive back there, right? Like nobody can shine to their fullest if the people around them aren't doing their job, and that's what the whole sport is.
I 100% agree. And on side note, Byron Leftwich is going to be an incredible head coach. He needs a shot somewhere in the NFL. I'm just saying, I'm going to bang that drum as long as I can. The offensive coordinator to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is damn right incredible, and people need to give him respect.
That team, listen. I was a Colts fan growing up. I mean, I still am a Colts fan, but like, so there was like a grudge against Tom Brady, like, and New England, until I watched his a football life, like him and Bill Belichick, and that's when I was like, yo, I fuck with these guys. You know what I mean? It was like these guys put the work in, and then so for him to and what he's done down there in Tampa, what that program's up, so much thing.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
It's crazy, and I'm a huge Jaguars fan, unfortunately, so that hurts me every single day of my life. But back to this, so you get everything's over and you get home. How do you feel about now, a few weeks out, looking back at your entire career and looking forward to your life?
It's bittersweet, I guess. It's like like I'm kind of a perfectionist kind of by nature, right? So I look back at my career and I'm kind of like, you know, was it good? Like I'm very hard on myself, right? I think a lot of high level athletes are going to be, because how else do you get to be a high level
Mm-hmm.
athlete without being your own biggest critic, right? So I remember even like it took me like almost a week to like watch the film, right? And it's like the whole week I was like, because like again, we go back to that last game, and it's like you get like almost three, like if you get almost 300 yards of running offense put up on you, I don't care who you are as a D lineman, you take that personally like on you. So like that's how I was feeling for the whole week. And then you watch the film and like and you watch it and it's not as bad as you're telling yourself it was for like the entire week. And I almost felt worse because almost like, man, there was literally not a whole lot else I would have or could have done differently to kind of change that result. And you feel like I felt almost like a little bit helpless, at least in the earlier part when it was fresh. Now it's like as you have more conversations with people you played with, coaches, mentors, that kind of like people, your support system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you realize that there's a lot more to football than just winning games. You know what I mean? Even though that is kind of that is why we do play the game, but there's so much that you get out of it with the relationships. And for me, like I guess I'm finding out. I mean, I don't want to like I'm happy with the relationships that I kind of built over these past few years through Golden Bears football.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because there's like three themes that you said like there that I found with interviewing different football athletes, especially is that one, when you start football at a young age, when you're in Pee Wee and everything, you are told like, I'm not here to teach you to win games. I'm here to teach you how to be a man. Right, that's a big theme as being a kid. Another one is the support system around you. Every great athlete needs that great support system to truly keep pushing them forward, because there's a lot of people that are great at sports and fall out of love with the game with the amount of work that needs to be done, and they don't have people beside them to keep pushing them and pushing them forward. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just the thing about this is that you need to be able to have the right people around you to tell you that what you're doing is okay, and what you're doing is you're going to be all right. That's the main thing, is that when you have someone in your ear pushing you harder, you're going to take that less off you. And the last thing is the perfectionist part. I find that in football, because you have such a specific assignment for each specific position, is that every single person holds them such a higher level. Every player is such a perfectionist because you're told that when you're running a route, you have to run it perfectly. When you're hitting the gap, you have to hit the gap perfectly, right? When you're tackling, especially now with the way rules are changing, you have to tackle perfectly or there's going to be a penalty called on you, right? Everything has
Yep.
to be so perfect and structured that you have to tell yourself to be perfect and be structured.
Exactly. And again, like just like I become so much more of a student of the game, like as I've gotten older versus being younger. And like that's one thing that I've noticed as well, right? Like you talk about the wide array of positions, right? And it's like from my perspective, you play a position like DB or receiver where there's just naturally, because of time and space, there's more time to kind of react and kind of recover from things. But when you're playing in the trenches, it's like one misstep and you're fucked, right? So it's like you do have to be perfect to be successful on a consistent basis. So it's like holding yourself to that standard, like you're 100% right. And like when you compound that pressure of the support system and like everybody, I need to do my job so everybody else can be successful. It's like it's a lot of pressure
Yeah, it
that
is.
you end up kind of putting on yourself, right? So yeah.
And the preparation part, right? You have one game a week. It's not like basketball where you have
Yeah.
three or four. You have one game a week. You have 5 days to prepare for that one game, right? So it's just unique when you think about it, the amount of work you have to put in perfectly, and you're showing yourself perfect step, perfect step, perfect step, and when it's game time and you don't make that perfect step, that's when you really beat yourself up in that moment. And the best of the best can get rid of that moment instantly and change and get better, right? And that for a lot of athletes is very hard and very difficult to get used to doing that to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, just kind of always trying to be better is kind of just the name of the game, right? Like in sports.
Yep. And then now football's unfortunately not there anymore, playing at least. We don't know what's in the future for coaching and for anything like that.
Okay.
So we'll get into that now. What is your outlook now? What do you look forward to doing with football in your future?
I actually had a decent amount of experience kind of coaching, so I would love to kind of get back into it. And I'm a teacher by trade, so the two kind of go hand in hand quite nicely. Yeah, so I'm hoping to kind of find myself in a position here in hopefully the next year, a little bit here, to be in a spot where I can go and just kind of give back, because I think that's another kind of you talk about themes that kind of come up with like football in particular. And one I've always had since like I was playing like Pee Wee and stuff like that was like when you're done, you come and you give back and you make that neck like you keep the sport alive and you pass this on this brotherhood, this like whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
what football is, like all the best parts of it, you know, and that's something that I got into very young. I've been coaching, like I said, since I was like 12 or 13. And then obviously when I like started playing like football, it was like, or not football, but like university, it was obviously you don't have as much time, but even camps and that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to kind of see what life's like fully on the other side, like, you know what I mean, of like coaching and kind of not worrying about like, oh, I got to coach and then I go to practice and I got to do schoolwork, whatever, right? Kind of just like slow down a little bit. But yeah, I would love to coach, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and honestly, one thing I think that eventually I think we are going to need more is refereeing too. I know this might not be something you've even looked
Mm,
into. It's hard to be a referee because you really have to remove yourself from this sport, and I think that's very difficult. But giving back to the community is a big thing in any way you can, whether it be at the games, being a booster, just giving back to the sport and making every sport bigger than what it was before. That's what this is all about, right? Making the young kids want to
100%.
be a man, right? That's what it's all about. So
Exactly, right?
so outside of sports, then what is your goals? What are some things that you want to do for yourself that isn't football related?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like I said, like I'm a teacher, so that's kind of number one on the docket
Of
right
course.
now. I've been trying to apply for all these jobs and whatnot. But you know, as everybody in 2021 seems to have a side hustle, I also kind of got my own little kind of podcast that I would love to kind of see grow and flourish, and hopefully be my day job in an ideal world. I'm sure you would love to see as well,
Yes.
because a lot more fun talking to people than showing up in a shirt and tie every day.
Yes.
But yeah, so I guess those are kind of my two main focuses at the moment, and just exploring different things that I'm interested in, right? Like, just because, like, I think just because you get so, at least for me, this past year has been pretty tough to kind of like get the juices flowing. You know, just and I've been really excited to kind of try other things like just like kind of maybe getting into some more different kinds of physical activity like yoga, or like I might try my hand at like some MMA from the creative aspect of my podcast, which is like a little different than this because like it's more comedy,
Mm-hmm.
like loosey goosey. I was kind of thinking about getting maybe like trying some like improv classes, like that kind of
Nice. That's
stuff,
no,
right?
that's
Just
awesome.
explore like yeah, man, just explore some like different avenues that I've been interested in for the past few years. But again, 4 hours a day is a lot of fucking time. So
Well, that's the thing, right? What mindset is completely changed from structure to like, oh my god, I have a life. What is that like, right? What is that gonna be? So tell me more about your podcast and what is your show? What is it like, and what do you do on it?
yeah, so it's called An Internet Show. It's hosted by me and one of my best friends, Craig. And yeah, we basically kind of just go on there and like at first it was kind of just kind of shooting the shit, but we're kind of trying to do, or we're establishing more of a structure. So it's still very loose form, just kind of conversation, but we just talk about really anything that we find interesting or funny and that kind of stuff. Always gearing towards being funny. You know, rule number one is always have a hee hee time. That's kind of our motto. And then you know, so we pull up like funny clips. We poke fun at shit. We also get into some more serious topics like when we have to. But I'm just enjoying kind of just the process of doing something more frequently. And then we also kind of we make skits. We did like a little short kind of like first pilot episode of like some series that like we're trying to start. Like we got a lot of kind of creative projects that we kind of want to get going. And he's kind of my conduit and outlet for that. And it's
That's
something that's was
awesome.
why he's one of my best friends because he kind of just you talk about having the support system that like pushes you. Like that's him for me in a creative aspect. And as somebody I never really did that kind of stuff when I was younger, like any of the arts or creative stuff. But it's like then you try your hand at it and you go, oh, this is actually pretty fun. You have somebody who kind of pushes you to do it more and more, and we push each other. This is our second podcast together now. We've been filming videos since we were 18, and I can say with some certainty after 6 long years, we're finally putting out a pretty decent product. So, and something that I'm proud to put. Well, I was always been proud to put my name
That's
on it, but
awesome. No, that's what's good is like it's different, and that's kind of like what I'm still trying to find now, and that's why I'm trying to interview people more. Is that it's a lot easier to have a conversation with someone and sit in front of a camera and actually talk to two people than just have it be yourself. And like it's hard to like look in a camera and talk for 25, 30 minutes. People don't realize how scary that can be, and to put yourself out there, right? And people listen or they
Yeah.
don't listen, that's fine. But it's just like to do that takes work. And when you have someone there holding your hand, like you guys are doing it together, running at the wall together, it's a lot different feel, right? You guys are together, right? That's what's more important is that you have each other, and it makes it a lot more fun. And you know what? If you're gonna hang out with the boys and talk shit anyways and just have fun, why not record it and throw it on the internet? What's the worst thing that's gonna happen, right? Like that's the way I look at things. If you're gonna
Exactly.
do it anyways, then like maybe try to have fun with it, and maybe something great can happen down the way.
I completely agree, right? Like it's the mindset of like, what do I have to lose? Oh, nothing. Then why not try, right?
Exactly.
You know.
And I
And yeah,
think that,
so it's
of course, go ahead.
no, go for it, go for it, go for it.
I was gonna say that's one thing that you learn from sports is that shit. I'm gonna go for the sack. If I miss, then my coach is gonna yell at me, and that's the worst thing that's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen anyways on Monday. Might as well fucking try.
But yes, it's awesome, and it's good that you're able to have an outlet outside of football, because I think that's what a lot of people search for after the sport is that you do have all this time. You need something to fill that time, or really you're just gonna break down, and it's gonna be very, very hard on your mentality and on your mind if you don't do anything.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then like, especially as you mentioned, like having it as like an outlet. I'm also starting to kind of, because I'll fully admit, Craig's kind of been the guy that's very much like done a lot of the legwork. So I'm trying to, try my hand at some different things as well. And one of them is like writing. So I had this idea uh, past few months here, and I've started kind of writing like a script for it. And like it's so cathartic. It's definitely like something that's like, I don't know, I want to say more personal, but obviously all this kind of stuff comes from my brain, so I have some sort of attachment to it. So, but like it was very like it's a different feeling like writing something versus just like hopping on the mics and going live or showing up reading my lines 5 minutes like before we go and like thinking about like versus thinking about character interplay and like the emotion that I wanted like people to like get out of the shit that like I make. So I'm excited to kind of try my hand at that kind of stuff more
That's
often. You know
awesome.
what I mean? The like the actual creating of something. You know what I mean? As a method, and especially for me, like that's something I for sure plan to do as getting through this grieving process of my career ending is like using these projects as like an outlet and a way for me to kind of hopefully like my goal is to also like in the same way that this podcast kind of speaks to people about these things very much kind of the same way but from more of like a for more of a creative and side I guess is
Yeah.
what I'd say.
Don't worry, I'm not offended by anything you say. This is shit. This is shit. I'm all good. I'm joking.
That's
But
not what I'm saying.
we talk about serious things here about athletes, but no one really gives a shit. But no, it's good, and I'm happy for you. And that's the like I said, I spoke to a lot of athletes before, and especially a lot of football players, and it's that hole, right? It's that gap, and if you have something now that you're trying your hand in, that's just the best part. And I wish you the best in that, truly, because I know how hard it is to sit in front of a mic and talk. And I know you use the same mic as me, which is pretty dope too. So I know we had a conversation
Hell
about
yeah,
that.
dude.
The MV7 actually isn't bad as a dynamic mic. But now, with that being said, are you getting into editing and everything like that, or is it just like you're just a guest on the show? Shouldn't say guest. You're still a co-host, but is that like what you're like doing right now?
I haven't tried my hand at editing yet. I keep pestering Craig, but he's like, man, I got to sit down and show you, and you never have any time, which has been our biggest conflict since I was 18 years old. But now that I have time, yeah, like I would love to, I've already told him like, man, like I want to invest more of myself into this show because it's been him kind of like, while he's the one who's been motivating me to come out, I've had the privilege of for the past 6 years just showing up and being like, I'm here versus him doing like a lot of like prep work for this shit.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's well, hey, listen, that's something you can do. One thing I actually do want to ask you is, for an athlete starting or a football player starting at a young age, what's some of the biggest advice you'd give to them?
Ooh, starting football at a young age, eh? Enjoy it. That would be the first thing I'd say. It would just be enjoy it. Like every moment that you play, like just cherish those moments. Cause like as you get older, like the sport becomes less and less centered around having a good time with your friends and more about winning. Not that's a bad thing, but like to me, like high school football is like the purest like form of football out there. It's like you're with these dudes all day in the same classes, and then you go and you hang out and you practice together. You hang out after practice. You go to parties on the weekend, and it's like that's just your core group of people. And I was giving a speech to a high school last week at like their banquet, and that's what I told them. I'm like, man, just don't take what you have for granted in this fraternity of guys that you have for granted. These guys that will do almost anything for you, and just enjoy every single second of it. And of course, I'd be remiss not to give the old Chris Morris and fucking stay in school. That too, because if you do want to keep playing, you know what I mean? Like you do kind of got to take care of school, but you know, even if that's not your goal to go to university, I'm a proponent of any level of football, period, any level of sport. Just get out there and get involved, and just yeah, I'd say just enjoy it. And last but not least, take care of your body, you know, do that mobility, do the nightly stretching. Don't be like me, or else you're going to feel old like me at 24.
It's funny that you say everything you do because the culture that Chris Morris gives to those players, I see it resonate through all of them. I had David Adebayo, the running back for U of A, and it's funny, the exact same thing he said is like school, 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 because that's what Chris Morris, I know him as a person, that's what he truly bakes into you. He forces you to go to school because if you ain't doing good in school, you ain't touching the football field. So, and this
No.
just, it's amazing. And it's good to see that culture and that idea is moving throughout the entire team, and as people are graduating, they're able to go and tell the younger kids that too, because it is important, right? School is important, but being able to have fun too. I know when we played in high school, that was honestly that's fun. Like high school football was the best, man. Like I said it before, when we made a school cry after we beat them before playoffs, it was one of the greatest feelings you had, right?
I remember that shit. I remember that shit.
So
with the blue cookies after, never forget.
And it was just some things about that game and just some of the games we had before. Truly, the trips, the bus rides, everything. That's when you feel most connected, because you're traveling down on a Saturday and you're able to just chill on a bus and do stupid shit all the way down. It's probably one of the best parts of it. Even when we lost, after we lost that last game against Notre Dame, we had so much fun on that bus ride home, and that's what that was all about, right? Is that brotherhood that you can't get anywhere else.
100%, man. And yeah, just like don't take it for granted, because then you blank and it's like, oh shit, it's like it's all done, which is fun. Like I'm not saying I want to go live back in high school or anything like that, but you know, like even my high school days, it's like you blink, it's like, oh shit, 3 years are done. Like I'm done playing high school football, and then football becomes like a job. And then like after high school football becomes like you have to be here at these times every day, no excuses, blah 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 blah. As you said, like that super hard structure, versus where before it's like, coach, maybe you know what I mean? Oh, I got a little tummy ache, or like whatever, like that. You know what I mean?
I rolled my ankle walking down the stairs. You mind if I just like sit out like the hitting drills today?
Exactly, that kind of shit.
That's and I think it's hilarious. That's what's the best part about high school compared to college. Do you, looking back at your career, do you see anything that you may regret, or is it truly just you can go to bed at night knowing that you buttoned up and you felt comfortable with everything?
Oh, there's definitely things I regret. There's definitely things I regret. Not from like, you know, the high. I mean, maybe I regret, like, not that I in any way, shape, or form regret going to U of A, but I think the one thing maybe I would have loved to explore my like put myself out there more. Maybe my grade 12 year. I have zero regrets about going to U of A though. I went there for that man himself, Chris Morris. He like one of the best mentors I've ever had in my life, especially as a teacher and as a football player, coach, like all that, just as a man, just like, damn, like can't speak highly enough of Coach Morris and everything he's done for me personally and for so many of my friends, teammates, right? I guess that would, but even with that all being said, I did sign like super early. So, and I know my brother went through the recruiting process after me, and I have one more going through it now. And you know, that was my advice to them. I was like, hey man, there's no rush. You know what I mean? Like I signed in like September, October of my grade 12 year, like super early, but I'm like, take your time, you know what I mean? Like weigh your options, like get your name out there. So I guess that would be one. And then the other, I mean, this one's probably just me being me, but like this past season especially, I ended off feeling like, damn, like I wish I just done more. You know what I mean? Like done more film, put more time in after, just like squeeze every last drop out of it so I can really kind of leave without being like, damn, like maybe I shouldn't have gone for wings that like one Wednesday or like whatever, right? Like that kind of thing. But like I can't cry over spilt milk. It is what it is now. Like it's on tape. It's on tape, so I can't take it back. But I guess those would probably be my two.
All right, well, you can't shit on Wing Wednesday, all right? That's a very important day, all right? So
that's sacred territory.
Right? You got to be able to go and get that done or you won't be able to play on Saturday, right? No. I get you. And those aren't really too bad because I think when it comes to recruitment, right? It's like doing anything, right? Unless there's not a time limit, right? You have time. No one's going to resend an offer for the most part. And they are going to tell you, hey, you have until this time, or we will tell you. And I think that's when politics and sports really comes into play. And I think it's great that you tell your brothers that just take your time, just let the offers come in and see what happens. Because like we said, you never know what's going to happen. But be patient because great things are bound to happen down the way, right?
Exactly. They say early bird gets the worm, but also Sloan City wins the race. So it just depends on which side of the coin you're looking at.
Exactly. Were there any obstacles you feel like in your time in college football that you had that were kind of hard for you to overcome at all?
I think of a few, to be honest. It was a tumultuous almost decade. I mean, the first thing that was in mind, I literally failed out of school my first year, right? I had, it's embarrassing, but a 1.3 GPA, and I was like, hitting that rock bottom though at the same time was like, honestly, God, Chandler, like one of the best things ever happened in my entire life because it literally put me in this career path that I'm in right now. Went on to be a 3-time academic All-Canadian, not
Oh, wow. More, but it's that's like, amazing.
Yeah, it was like the wake up call of like, oh shit, like I gotta figure my shit out. So that was one that was like, I remember just like getting that email and just being like so distraught of just like, man, like what am I gonna do? I'm gonna like they're gonna kick me out of school and I'm not gonna be able to play football and all this shit. And I ended up like falling into this program like Native Studies. And at first I remember I was so racist back then, but I was so just like there was a stigma around just being a dummy and being like Native Studies, and I fucking hated it. And then I get in there, and turns out that Native people are the Black people of Canada, and that nobody ever told me that, coming from having roots from America, like in the American and in the Caribbean slave trade, to learn that like everything that happened to all my ancestors happened here on this soil. I was like, I fell in love, and now it's like I'm extremely passionate, obviously, about Indigenous studies and all that kind of shit. I plan to go teach up in Nunavut at some point in my life here, but enough about that. Yeah, so I guess that's
no. That's important. Honestly, I'm telling you right now, that's something that I find really important. That is an important subject. I'm huge on that. There's a podcast I did. It was after the George Floyd murder, and it was talking about. I lived in Canada for 10 years. I was an illegal immigrant for 4 years. Completely legal. It's one of the reasons why I actually had to stop playing sports or pursue going to school or anything was because of this. Really? And one of the things I talked about, and this is not to go on me, this is not about me, but it's that for 4 years, I was looked at as normal, as just a Canadian white kid you wouldn't mess with. And the entire time I see people being racist towards other people, other kinds, Black, Indian, any race, especially Native, they are looking at me like I'm a normal human being. And that actually sits with me today. And I think that it's a terrible thing. I am really believe in the Black Lives Matter movement down here in the States. I know what's going on right now with the Aboriginals in Canada as well. I think that what's going on and what's happening to people is an important subject. And I think it's really involved with sports too. Because I truly believe that Black athletes in America don't get the recognition that they deserve. And I know that when even Aboriginals play hockey, Canada's #1 sport, they're not even looked at as an athlete a lot of times. They're looked down upon and they're trying to get out of the sport. And it's something we need to change in every single sport. So I understand, and I'm very happy that you're able to learn about that. And I understand that your background and your family's background was not something that was simple or easy. And it's great to hear that minds can't change about anyone, because they really do need to change. And we need to become more equality driven with women, men, and race and sex and everything like that. It needs to change today. And that's what my goal is with this podcast, is to hear those problems, hear those issues, and make sure they're talked about.
Yeah, man, it is like uber important. And I remember just like the information overload of just like I've lived like I'm born and raised obviously, and I remember like thinking about like what we learned about in school, and like and even knowing now like what I know versus like what the general public knows. Like I've taught my like parents stuff about like shit that I was like, yeah, like that shit happened here. Like like bad shit happened here like not very long ago. You
Mhm.
know, and like we're not talking like 400 years ago, we're talking like 50, right?
Yeah,
So it's
not even
like
that. Like some up to like 40 now that they're finding out, right?
100%. Oh Jesus, it's beyond tragic, right? And I completely fucking stand with you, right? It's the beautiful part or thing about kind of this age that we're in. Everybody's acknowledging that these issues impact people in different ways, and not just being like, oh, well, just suck it up and just like go get a job, right? It's like nah, dog. Like like there's some layers to this shit that kind of like need to kind of be sorted through and addressed. And I think sport and education, which is why I'm a teacher that loves sports, right? And like to me, education is the kind of universal equalizer, at least as far as I see. Like if you can get everybody to having the same kind of standard level of education and like opportunity, like obviously there's a lot of other shit, but like that is a huge one that like has to be addressed first. Like when we talk about here in Canada, I think like the dropout rate for Indigenous people is like 60% out of like high school, which is like double the national average, and nobody's talking about it. So like just shit like that is like, how do you expect you know businesses to flourish, teachers come out, and like not to mention that, like for kids to see themselves like in roles, right? Like I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but
No,
like
no, no,
I
no.
know
Go
you
ahead.
as
You're
like
fine. No, no, no. Talk what you need to. This is you. This is all about you.
but like I know that one experience I've had teaching is like I don't know if this is just me being Cooper aware, but like when I'm teaching like a lot of white people here, there's not many black people, so like I'm one of the only black teachers. So, like, but like when you teach like a black student, like I feel them gravitate and look you differently, and so I understand now a little more of like why it's important to have like Indigenous teachers, bankers, like whatever in every facet of all minorities and everybody. So it's like I think that representation does matter, and it shows kids like, yeah, man, if you want to be a teacher, fucking come on down, man. Like if you want to be a business person and be a multimillionaire, come on down, dog. Like it's just kind of having those and that mentorship for the next generation is super important.
It starts with opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the main thing down here, is that I know a lot of cities are trying to get rid of projects and things like that and try to boost those communities. Um, because finally there's, especially in the Democratic Party here, I know the Liberal Party and the NDP Party. I know we're going way off topic of football, but
All
um,
good, brother.
there is there is a sense of equality trying to be presented, and inclusion. And we can't get opportunity until there's inclusion. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
main thing, is we have to be able to build up the right people. And it's going to take a long time. Everybody might think it's turning on its head right now and it's changing, but I mean, slavery 400 years ago, and it still went on until the late 1800s, and it's still changing, right? Women's suffrage back in the 60s, and it still hasn't changed, right? Equality is not there yet. And I know
Yeah.
I can only bang my own drum. I know I'm a white male. At the end of the day, I know who I am. I know what it's like. I know that I get privileges that no one else does. But I also know that I
Mm-hmm.
don't want that to be a crutch for me, that I just am standing on the sideline being blind about it. I want to be able to hear your story about what you've learned, and what other people have learned, and what other people have to deal with, because the shit's not going away. Like we learned last week, if you're listening to this in a couple years from now, if last week someone got off the hook with something fucking terrible, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's just shows that the system is still needs to be changed, and equality still needs to be there, because it's not there yet for any race, honestly, other than white, for most countries. And I know I'm going on a tangent, but I know that Canada is looked at as everyone's all happy and nice and everything like that. But Canada's got a lot of issues too, but we won't go deep into that because that's a whole social issue. That's a lot more deeper than football and truly what this podcast can touch on, to be honest with you.
That's a second podcast. That's a second podcast with a Chandler and A-Train. Come on back.
We can do that if you want to. If you want to sit down and have a true discussion with this and break this down, this is a very important subject, and I think it's very important to talk about and keep talking about it and keep talking about it. Even when change happens, it has to keep being talked about.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more.
Anything else that you have to say? I know that those were some challenges. So let's get back to what you had. So challenge is going to school, 1.6 GPA, if I'm not mistaken. You turn that around. You get to be an academic all Canadian 3 years in a row. Fucking incredible. That's amazing, because I understand how hard that can be when it comes to, like you said, 4 hours every day of football. And being in the classroom the next day at 7 or 8 a.m., that's not normal, right? And then you go on to be a teacher, and that just shows what you have. Were there any other things that you went through for the 4 years that you had?
Yeah, I guess, I'd say that, and then probably this past year, not the past year, sorry, but 2020, when kind of COVID hit, was the first time I kind of battled with like mental health, and like also it was my first time ever being injured, and like compounding down on top of already struggling mental health at that point was something that was like a whole new foreign issue for me, something that I'd never kind of dealt with growing up. And you hear about people talk about having anxiety or depression, that kind of shit, and I was like, I don't really know what that's like. And then it's like, ooh, 6 months in, like just inside, fuck, this is the worst. And then you compound it with like literally breaking my back. It was not a good time. So I think that was probably the second biggest challenge. Top two.
Yeah. It's funny when I'm talking to people in Canada now, because I live in the States. I live in Florida. Like, we didn't have a lockdown. Like, people don't even wear masks here. Like, it is a complete different feel when you come down here. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm vaccinated. I preach that to everyone. Truly, please get vaccinated, because it is stupid to not be. And if you aren't, and I'm sorry. Do what you want to do.
I am. Hey, listen, I am. Healthcare's got my back, baby. Free healthcare's got my back.
But truly, seriously, like, it's important to be vaccinated, and I think that for us to ever be normal again, it's something we have to work on. It's something we have to be. And I know up there, I've talked to people throughout the entire COVID lockdown there. God, I couldn't imagine. I know that a lot of people, became created. This podcast was created, luckily, because of COVID. I was able to have time to myself and sit down and do what I want to do. And I know for a lot of people it helped, but I know a lot of people it tore you down, especially in Edmonton, where you have 8 months of snow and like daylight is non-existent in the winter. I know how depressing it can be in general. I can't even imagine being locked in your house for every single hour of every single day on top of that.
It was fucked, to say the least. Yeah, it was not fun. Like, I'd be remiss to say, like, there was also positive that came out for me too. Like, I lost a shit ton of weight because all I had to do was run. So I just I went outside and I just ran all the time, because luckily it was summer. But you're right, it's like then it gets into be the nitty gritty winter, and it's like, oh shit, like we're back to, as you said, like I think it was dark at like 4:30 today. Right, and like that, like seasonal depression is a real thing that fucking this year. But yeah, COVID was and it's like it's the social stuff that you miss, right? It's the casual stuff, and it's still not the same here. And that was a big reason why this season, even though we were blessed to have a season, we didn't have one last year. It was still a big challenge for me, playing most of my career in pre-COVID times, and my last year not. It's like we didn't have access to the locker room. We couldn't organize any team event. Like, we still haven't had our rookie party. Not that's like the be like I'm not only partying, but as we said, like that's where team bonding happens, at all the extra stuff, because all you do at practice is practice and work, right? And all work and no play makes for a very dull boy. So you need that extra stuff kind of outside that happens, whether it's planned or organically to happen. And it's like things are still locked down here, so you can't really do a whole lot. So I know that for me put a big strain. But yeah, like getting back to just 2020, so just being like isolated, like on your own, and I was living like on my own. So like nobody to talk to all day. I'm injured, so I go to practice and I'm just like rehabbing at practice and then just go back home alone. It was just not good times, man. Oof.
Yeah, you had that hoodie stand. You had the sideline stand where you just go back and forth, hands in the hoodie, we try to stretch a little bit. It hurts a
Exactly.
little too much, yeah. And that's hard, and it's interesting to speak to the athletes and talk about pre-COVID and after COVID, right? And it's just what we took for granted before, and unprecedented, truly a pandemic. Who would have thought any of this would happen? It's so crazy to think that what we had before will probably never happen again in some aspect, right? Life is never going to be
Yeah.
normal of what it was in 2019. 2020 changed the world forever, no matter what way we look at it.
Truly, it did, right? So I guess in a way, when you talk about me looking back on regrets, I have nothing but happiness about the fact that I played most of my career before shit got fucked. But yeah, it was like like yeah, it definitely wasn't easy, especially like and the COVID stuff. I think that affected everybody, right? But I, with the injury on top of it, like as a guy I've never been injured as well my whole career, which is unheard of for a nose tackle, by the way. Like I remember
Mm-hmm.
people would ask me like, you never hurt? Like, nah, like, didn't miss a practice until like that year. But like I never got it right. Like guys would talk about the same thing. You know what I mean? With being like having anxiety, depression, about just being like very overall just sad about not playing. And then I understood why, but I didn't like when you don't experience something. You know what I mean? You really can't speak to it. And then you're in the boots of that person, and you're watching all your friends do all this stuff all the time and go and hang out and do the football, and you're like, man, I just wish I was out there. I just wish I was doing anything but lying on the ground. You know what I mean? Like I wish I was getting better, or like whatever, right? And it's just you just can't. Like your body just won't let you, and it's so weird as like someone who prides yourself on being a like athlete, being in some of the best shape that you're probably like ever gonna be in, and then you're like, I can't, like my body won't let me run. Like what is this, right?
Yeah, that it. I can imagine you're 100%, 100%, 100% instantly zero, and you have to build yourself back up from that, right? It's like a loading bar. You slowly have to get yourself back to that 100%, or you're never going to be at that, right? If you start playing at 80%, you're going to hurt yourself again, and it's going to be restarting the process. And it's just like, is it worth it to push yourself that extra mile if it's just going to end up being bad down the end, right? The one major question I have from that is, how did you get over all that then? What was the breaking point, or is it something that maybe you're not completely over even till today?
Man, honestly, still not over it. Definitely still kind of just, it kind of opened up like a big bag of worms, but something I guess I never really addressed. I never really, I mean, I think guys in general have kind of a hard time talking about things and opening up, and I would put myself in that same boat. But it kind of opened, like when it got like real bad in 2020, kind of opened my eyes of like, I need to kind of go get some shit off my chest and go and kind of seek some professional help, because I can't handle it all on my own. I'm not Superman. Even though I tell myself that all the time, I can't do it all. So it was just, yeah, it was definitely just a lot. And so, you know, working through it kind of like obviously helped, like just like the act of, I think, talking about these kind of things and addressing it for what it is, and not feeling like guilt or blame over feeling a certain way or not feeling a certain way, is kind of the big thing that I'm kind of taking away from it. I'd say that that's mostly it, is like, yeah, like just something I still struggle with, but um obviously being not injured for sure helped as well, being able to move my body freely, but didn't fix anything, right? Like I'm not, it's still, as we said, in the same way that this whole new wave of finding equality has just started, so it's kind of my own mental health journey, right? It's a process.
And thank you so much for saying that, because I think that's probably one of the most important things I've ever talked about, is that men at a very young age are taught to be a certain way, right? Especially in football. Be tough, be strong, push through, suck it up. There's hurt and there's injured. And
Exactly.
and that's what you're taught. And at this age, as we're growing and we're getting bigger, we're getting smarter, is that mental health is something that is affecting every athlete. And I said this before with David, Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, Calvin Ridley. more and more athletes cannot take this pressure anymore. More and more athletes are like, work, school, sports, and then social life don't exist. 24 hours, not a thing. So it is so difficult for us, and I think that's important for us to get out there and talk about who we are. You need that support system. You need people to listen. You need either professional help or just a great support system to be able to hear you and talk to you. And that's what I think we need to preach as athletes and as people right now is you're not alone. You are not alone. People fight this same thing that you do. It's okay to talk about it, even if you've never even thought about it before.
Yeah. And that's for sure how I felt. I was like, there's something wrong with me. Like I'm weak. You know what I mean? Like all those thoughts. And like I've been lying, said I still don't have those same struggles and thoughts now. Cause it's like, I'm still a football player, like kind of like deep down inside. So it's kind of like, peeling back those like layers, as you said. And yeah, it's a conversation that has to keep on happening, keep being more normalized, as you said. Is I think not just all athletes, but everybody deals with it. I think in some way, shape, or form at some point in their life, they've had some sort of struggle and needed to kind of lean on somebody. And if not, you're a fucking robot and you're not a human being. So that's how that works.
There are people out there too, but I'm glad that that's something that we were able to peel back. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that, like I said, that's so important, and it's hard to say that. It's hard to say that to people, and honestly, it's hard to be recorded and say it too. So I really do appreciate it. That's massive, and I honestly hope that you get everything out that you can. I hope that it does help you speaking to people and talking to people, and I hope that people around you are willing to listen, because it takes one person to talk, it takes two people to have someone to listen, right? So that's the most important part. So thank you for that. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, brother, for just having the fucking space for me to, air it out.
Of course. And that's my goal, is this is your time. This is your space. I'm going to give you one last question. Is that anything else you want to air out? Anything else you want an opportunity to say?
I can't think of anything that we haven't kind of touched on about like football and all the kind of aspects of it. I guess I would just really hit home, like not just football, but just sports in general, whether like no matter how old you are, I guess, kind of listen to this. So if you're somebody that has kids, or you're a kid who doesn't play sports, or a kid who already plays sports, just get involved, and get involved in organized sports, get involved in non-organized sports, just get active, like get outside. I'm a phys ed teacher, so just get active, like get outside, just do stuff, like try new things. Cause like, as we've kind of already touched on here, like nothing, like the worst that's going to happen is that you fail, and then you pick yourself up and you dust yourself back off and you get back on that horse and you keep on going forward. Like, as long as there's still breath in these lungs, like there's still opportunity for you to learn and try new things. And hell, if that's not life, I don't know what is.
Thank you so much for everything. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. Your story is great. It was incredible. Every single story matters, and I'm glad you had the opportunity to say everything you need to get off your chest.
Thank you for having me on here, brother.
Awesome, of course. And for that, Anthony, appreciate everything. This thing outside the pylons. Please rate, review, subscribe to the pod, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, even Spotify. But I hope you guys have a great night. And until next time, we'll see you guys.